Hello viewers from wherever you're watching us from. You're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and we are broadcasting live from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. My name is Aliu Sise, and it's now time for your weekly State of Affairs program, which is aired every Tuesday at 9 p.m. and repeated rather on Sunday at 10 a.m. Well, in 2023, the Gambia's Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, C.D. Keita, inaugurated the State-owned Enterprises Regulated Commission chaired by Mr. Usain Ngam. And other members of the commission include Babakar Sompo Sise, Adama Dane, Cecilia Bande, and Amin Jai. And joining us this week to discuss, what the commission has been able to achieve after over a year, I have in the studio Bai Madi Sise, who is the Executive Secretary of the commission. Bai, good to have you in the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
To start with, could you kind of remind our viewers as to what is the role and mandate of the commission?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aliu. Basically, the main purpose why the commission was established was to basically strengthen the oversight function of SOEs. If you look at SOEs, they were primarily created for two main reasons. One is to do with for them to deliver public service and deliver public service in the most effective and efficient manner. The second thing was to do so in the most financially viable manner. And if you look at in these two dimensions, especially from the financial perspective, instead of SOEs contributing towards government coffers, it's been the other way around, whereby government has been continuously bailing out public enterprises over the years. If you look at for the past 20 or 30 years, also from a public service perspective, if you ask many Gambians today, they will tell you that the level of public service being delivered by these SOEs is really below standard. So the commission was basically created to look at oversight function, mainly in the areas of governance, good corporate governance, because that also has been a challenge, governance. If you look at, for example, the Ernst & Young audit report that was done back in, I think, 2018, 2019, it highlighted very serious governance issues regarding the management of these SOEs. Likewise, also, if you look at the recent audit reports, produced by the NAO, you see serious governance lapses. So the commission is saying basically to see how best we can strengthen the oversight in terms of corporate governance and also in terms of financial oversight. From the corporate governance perspective, we're mainly looking at compliance in terms of complying with the law, which is the SOE Act, also complying with the SOE regulations, also complying with the Code of Good Corporate Governance, complying with the board charters, complying with the audit charters. From a financial perspective, we're looking at basically how do we make sure that SOEs do not pose a fiscal risk to the government. So this is the primary role of the commission: governance oversight and fiscal oversight.
So, couple of last month, if I'm right, you signed your 8th performance contract with NAWEC out of 12 SOEs. Could you just share with us, what has been the key findings as far as this performance contract is concerned?
That's a very good question. If you look at the performance contracts, we started signing them even prior to the establishment of the SOE Commission. The first one was signed by the President, that was in 2023.
The one he did with GPA and
GPA,
others.
Social Security, and GNPC. Then following that, once the Commission got established in 2024 last year, we signed 4 additional performance contracts, that is to do with the GGC, with GIA, GAMPOST, and also with GPPC. And this year now we've also signed with NAWEC. So overall, what has been our experience so far? One, we have noticed some marginal improvement in terms of the financial performances of SOEs for those who have signed these performance contracts. We've seen marginal improvements, especially from their financial performance.
No significant improvement?
Not that significant, to be quite frank.
Okay.
But one SOE in particular that is doing quite well since he signed the performance contract is the SSHFC, Social Security. We've seen very notable impact of this performance contract in terms of how management is implementing it. From an operational perspective, we see that the KPIs are really moving in the right direction. From a governance perspective, there's some small issues there. But from a financial perspective, there's really some very positive development with regards to Social Security. Now, the other one, which is to do with the GNPC and the GPA, we have done preliminary assessment so far. But we need to do final assessment because they don't have audited accounts yet. And if you look at the clauses on the performance contract, it stipulates that they should be assessed based on audited accounts. And unfortunately, this is one main challenge that we're having as a commission, that most SOEs, they have a backlog when it comes to audited accounts, most of them. If you look at the PEC sittings currently, they're mainly looking at 2021, 2022 accounts. So really it's a big challenge for us. So even though GNPC and GPA signed the performance contracts in 2023, we're now in 2025 and we're still unable to assess because of the lack of these audited accounts. We need the audited accounts before we make our final assessment and make our recommendation. So that is the main challenge. But in terms of what we've seen so far, we've seen some, again, marginal improvements in terms of the financial performance. But Social Security really has been doing quite well in terms of the performance contract. And this, as a result, in fact, they're the only one that met the target, which is to submit their audited accounts 3 months after the end of the year. And they did that in 2024. Once 2023 ended, they submitted their audited accounts by March of 2024, which is really good. Because having audited statements in a timely manner is a core pillar to good corporate governance. You must have timely audited accounts. Because looking at audited accounts that are 3 years old, 4 years old, I mean, things can be overtaken by events. I mean, they might not be that very relevant. So really, we give a lot of credit to the Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation for that.
So what do you think is responsible? I mean, like you said, I mean, even the National Audit Office is now dealing with audits of 2021. What is responsible? The laws are very clear that every institution must submit their audited accounts by the end of the year. So what is the problem here?
Well, the argument that we are hearing from the SOE perspective is that there is not sufficient audit firms in the country, and that most audit firms are primarily focusing first on the private sector. Then once they're done with the private sector, that's the time that they come to government. But recently there's been a development whereby the NAO, the National Audit Office, has taken over this responsibility. Before they used to contract it out to the private sector to do the auditing of these SOEs, but now they've taken ownership of this responsibility and now they'll be auditing these SOEs. So we hope that within the next 2 or 3 years, all these backlogs will be cleared because it's really impacting our work as a SOE Commission, because we are signing these performance contracts, yet we are unable to render final recommendation on these performance contracts because of the lack of these audited accounts.
But I know a lot has improved now at the National Audit Office. I remember back in 2012 when I used to cover the Parliament, I mean, the then Auditor General Karamba Ture will explain the challenge they were facing in terms of mobility and retaining qualified personnel who can actually audit most of these institutions. But in this case, I mean, what are these SOEs expected to meet after signing this performance contract?
Say it again, what are?
What are they expected to meet?
It depends.
It's one thing to sign, but what do you expect to meet within what time frame?
Well, basically, the performance contract, the main objective is to look at how to enhance service delivery. That is one. And also, how do we move, especially from a financial perspective, how do we move them from a loss-making to at least a break-even point? And also, from a governance framework, how do we strengthen the governance framework? But the core objective is about accountability. How do we hold both the board and the management accountable for delivering results? Because we have to deliver results. As an SOE, you have to deliver results. So the main objective is enhancing service delivery to make sure that public services are being delivered in a very timely, efficient, and effective manner, to make sure that you're doing this in the most financial viable manner, and also to strengthen your governance framework. These are the 3 core objectives. And if you look at the KPIs, all the KPIs are centered around these 3 core areas: governance, operational efficiency, and financial performance.
Interesting. So how many SOEs are left to sign the performance contract?
Currently we have 4 left. That is to do with GAMTEL, GAMCEL, then GRTS, and civil aviation. Now, the reason we are not moving ahead with GAMTEL, GAMCEL is because there was a recent cabinet conclusion on GAMTEL, GAMCEL, and there's plan to restructure the company. So it's best for us to wait until that finalized, the restructuring is finalized, then we embark them on a performance contract with them. With regards to civil aviation as well too, the reason is because currently they're undergoing a decoupling exercise. So the idea is to wait until that is finalized. When the company is broken into 2 different entities, then we can engage them on a performance contract. GRTS, we're hopeful that If not this year, the latter part of this year, or maybe next year, we'll definitely engage them.
So are they doing well? Do they need to sign performance contract?
Who?
GRTS.
GRTS currently, if you look at their financial performance, they're not posting losses, but they're also not very profitable as well too. Based on management accounts again, we don't have the audited accounts of 2024 and 2023. But based on the management accounts for the first half of 2024, January to June, they're doing okay.
And let's look at NAWEC. At some point, I mean, they gave a recommendation, 15% salary reduction for not meeting certain requirements or expectations. I interviewed the president and he said he pleaded on behalf of NAWEC for the commission to reduce it to 5%.
Yes,
why 15%?
Because that is what the contract stipulates. Because the NAWEC performance contract, I have to say, it was not done by us, the commission. This was a long-time contract. It was signed, I believe, in 2020 or so. It was mainly spearheaded by the World Bank and the Minister of Finance. But if you look at that contract, the stipulation is that any performance below 65%, then there's a penalty, there's a sanction. And the sanction is to reduce the personal emoluments or salary by 15%. So once we did the assessment, for 2021, I believe they scored 30%. And 2022, they scored 20%, basically. So they were way below the threshold of 65%. So what we did, we invited the board and also the management to explain the reason for the poor performance. And they gave us some couple of good reasons. I will not say good, but at least they justified the reason for the poor performance. Then after that, we factored their justification. And then we recommended that their salaries should be reduced. Instead of 15%, according to the contract, we recommended 10% based on the justification that they provided. Then we took that to the executive. They listened to us. They also listened to NAWEC as well too. Then they made a decision that instead of 10%, let it be reduced further to 5%. So currently they're implementing it. So the top management of NAWEC, all of them have their salaries reduced by 5%.
And how has been the performance of NAWEC since then? But I know you must have been doing regular monitoring and evaluation of these SOEs.
In terms of financial performance, NAWEC is the most problematic one. Is by far the most problematic one.
Why?
There's a lot of factors for NAWEC, really. There's a lot of factors. For example, two of the reasons that the board gave at the time was that Forex, mobilizing Forex is really a challenge for them, and they're incurring heavy losses in terms of the Forex trading. Amounting
to billions, according to the Permanent Secretary of Energy.
Yes, they're really incurring a lot of losses in terms of mobilization of Forex. The other one also is to do with the volatility of the market in terms of petroleum products. You can have sometimes very expensive petroleum products. I remember after the COVID, I remember there was a big jump in the prices of petroleum products. And petroleum products is the key input to their business model because they run on generators and the like. So really, these were two of the key reasons that the board highlighted. But NAWEC, there's a lot of issues at NAWEC, really.
I mean, aside from, like you said, the issue of petroleum products, the issue of the Forex staffing. What's your take on that?
Yes, they have.
We often hear that most of it is overstaffed.
Yeah, they have the largest number of personnel, more than 1,000 personnel. But one key variable that we're monitoring is to do with the admin and staff cost as a percentage of revenue. But for them, it is quite low, but it's low for a reason because they generate a lot of revenue. I mean, you're talking about annually they about $6 billion, $7 billion in revenue. So obviously, even if you have, let's say, a wage bill of $500 million, that would be quite insignificant compared to maybe $8 billion, $7 billion or so. So that's it. But yes, you're right. It's a possibility that they're overstaffed. We have not really zoomed into that aspect yet when it comes to NAWEC. But other SOEs, definitely, we see that they're definitely overstaffed. For example, GAMTEL and GAMCEL. The numbers are already telling us that because if you look at that particular indicator that I just mentioned, which is to do with staff cost as a percentage of revenue, for GAMCEL is really high. It's more than 80% or something like that. So basically, all their revenue is going towards staff cost.
So aside from salary reduction, what are the other penalties that might come with not meeting the expectation of the commission?
Yeah, currently the sanctions that we've put in place is that below a certain performance, basically the commission can recommend to the executive to dissolve the entire board of directors below a certain performance.
Okay.
And another sanction also put in place is that below a certain performance also, the commission can recommend to the executive to terminate the services of the managing director.
Okay.
So these are the two sanctions put in place. But we're also looking into other sanctions as well in line with the SOE Act as well. So in fact, now what we've done in the performance contract, we're saying that we can apply any sanction in the SOE Act as stipulated on the SOE Act, not only limited to dissolving the board and also terminating the services of the managing director. But again, our role is just to recommend.
Yeah, yeah.
We assess and
You
we make a recommendation.
You don't have an enforcement,
exactly, yes.
enforcement powers,
Exactly,
as you said.
Yeah.
But I mean, this 5% reduction at NAWEC, does it apply across the board or just the management?
Well, just the management, just the senior management.
Okay.
Yeah, basically,
And in the case of GPA now, I mean, we know it's been privatized. Do you still have, control, or do you have powers over the new owners?
No, we want to engage them on that next step because for now, our priority is to assess their performance in 2023. Okay. So we're really putting a lot of pressure on the GPA to make sure that they finalize the auditing of their 2023 accounts. That's so that we can analyze and assess the 2023 performance. After that, we also want to make sure that they finalize the auditing of the 2024 accounts so that we can also assess their performance in 2024. But within the next couple of months also, we intend to engage them in terms of the way forward with regards to assessing the performance of GPA. Now that the company has engaged into a concessionaire company from Turkey.
I know someone will be asking, I mean, like I said in the intro, the commission was inaugurated by the minister. How independent is the commission?
I can say that it is quite independent because if you look at all our advices and all our decisions, all our policies, they're all internally generated. Of course, we have to report to both the executive and also the Minister of Finance on certain things that we're doing. For example, at the end of the 1 year since the commissioners were appointed, we formulated a very thorough activity report that basically detailed out all the activities that we've undertaken as a commission over the past 1 year. And after we formulated that activity report, we did a presentation to the executive. We also shared the report with all our key stakeholders, including the Ministry of Finance, including all the public enterprises, so that they know exactly over the past 1 year what has the commission been doing in terms of fulfilling its mandate of oversight of SOEs.
So how do you monitor their financial performance? Do you call them for hearing, or you visit them and find out from them, or what?
No, normally we just request the management accounts on a quarterly basis. They submit their management accounts, and we do a detailed report on the financial performance. We mainly look at different variables. For example, the issue to do with solvency, how solvent they are. We look at ratios to do with, let's say, debt to assets ratio. We look at maybe debt to EBITDA ratio. For example, for liquidity, we look at maybe current ratio. We look at also maybe debtor days. For profitability, maybe we look at return on equity. We also look at maybe net profit margin and things. So we look at all these different ratios, basically, and then come up with a position to see how solvent they are, how liquid they are, and how profitable they are. And in doing that analysis also, one can gauge the sort of fiscal risk they pose to government, because now you have all the information, so you can advise government accordingly as far as who has the biggest chance of posing a fiscal risk to the central government.
And also the issue of, still on NAWEC, I know you must have had the audio that was circulating, where some senior members of the management were asking for bribes.
Yeah, that one...
Isn't that worrying as a commission?
It is. It is really, really worrying anytime you hear such things. But again, once the commission got news of this audio, or got hold of this audio, we took immediate action. The first thing we did, we wrote immediately to the chairman of the board. We requested for him two things. We asked him two things.
That's immediate past chairman. I don't know, they have a new board chair now.
Yes, the previous board chair.
Okay.
We told him two things. One, let him do an initial assessment of the situation within 7 days and report back to the commission immediately.
Wow.
Then after that, we also told him that we're going to escalate the matter to the NAO to conduct a forensic audit. So immediately also we wrote to the NAO to conduct a forensic audit on NAWEC, especially on their procurement activities. So that's the immediate step that we took. But also, I have to give a lot of credit to the former board chairman and the board of NAWEC, because they took decisive action. As soon as it happened, they were meeting almost on a daily basis, and they were able to make certain decisions based on the investigations.
So what happens to those that were involved?
I understand that the two that were involved have been dismissed. That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah. Both I think the former finance director and I think it's a procurement guy also, yeah.
From NAWEC, GPPC, you went after them. You sent the managing director on administrative leave pending outcomes of the investigation into alleged financial misappropriation. How were you able to reach this decision?
Yeah, for GPPC, what happened is that we received a letter from the board chairman, basically detailing out some misconduct practices by the managing director. And these were very serious allegations. And not only serious, but he also claimed that he has the evidence to prove these allegations of misconduct. And we have to maybe take one thing into consideration, that this is coming from a board chairman. That is a very substantive figure in any organization. So that is some claim that you would not take very lightly. So when the letter came to us, and he also requested us whether we can engage the NAO to come and do an audit. So when the letter came to us, the first thing we did, we decided to write to NAO immediately, because these are very serious allegations. Yeah. We wrote to the NAO, and we requested them for them to undertake an audit at the GPPC. In addition to that also, we requested that the managing director be placed on administrative leave. Okay. The reason we did that was because we just wanted to make sure that the investigation and the audit is free from any potential interference, basically. But I have to also say that the managing director, as of now, everything is just allegation. Okay. So he's not guilty of anything. Yeah. Everything is just based on allegations, so we have to be patient and wait until the audit is completed and finalized, then we can make a decision. So
how do you ensure that these SOEs are free from any political interference?
Currently, as we speak, I'm not aware of, since the commission was established.
We have seen instances where SOEs are seen constructing police stations. Is that their mandate? Or is part of their social corporate responsibility? That
might be part of their social corporate responsibility, depending on their budget. I mean, because some they have budgeted funds for corporate social responsibility. It does not necessarily mean that they might have been instructed by somebody, by a politician or so to. It's possible, but again, from my perspective, I'm telling you that in the issue of interference, especially over these past few years, compared to the previous maybe 10 years or so, things have really subsided. But also, you know, the issue of interference, you have to put it into context. Because really, as an owner of an entity, the best practice is to really maybe refrain from interfering, especially when it comes to commercial. But from a practical perspective, it's really quite difficult, especially from an owner perspective. Let me give you a very simple example. Today, if you own two companies, let's say company A and company B, and both companies are struggling, and you taking money from your own pockets to subsidize the companies, and one day maybe one of the companies becomes maybe financially viable, and the other one is still struggling, maybe you can still tell the company that is financially viable to maybe support company A who's still struggling. So really the issue of interference is difficult to completely take away from these SOEs. It's very, very difficult, even though it's not best practice. Best practice is that you let them operate in a very financial and commercial manner.
So, I mean, how long should we expect the investigation to go on, JPPC?
That one really...
We have seen instances where, you know, corruption allegations are made, investigation will take almost over 2 years, audit reports will be submitted, and nothing will come out of it.
Okay, for us...
How long will it take under the SOE Commission to ensure, I mean, there's swift, you know, investigation and action is taken?
Well, you have to put it in the context as to what we can do at our level as a SOE Commission. For us, what we can do is to, first of all, tell NAO to do an audit. Now, once the audit report comes, he will share with us and maybe also with the police. But from our end, once we get the report, then we'll make a decision as far as what needs to be done. But so for now, it's a bit maybe premature to say exactly what is going to happen. Because again, these are only mere allegations for now. But you made a good point. Some of the investigation has maybe taken a bit too long, maybe 1 year, 2 years or so. But really, that one maybe is at another level, maybe at the police level. Okay, but for NAO, how long will they take to conclude the audit? I don't envisage it taking more than 3-4 months. Okay. But again, they are in a better position to say that, the NAO.
Earlier on, you mentioned it is sad that most of these SOEs that should have been, in fact, funding government projects are becoming more like a liability to the state, in the sense that government is even paying their loans and debts. What is the potential of these SOEs if they are properly run and managed?
Oh, there's huge potential, because you're looking at a total asset base of about $38 billion. Wow. So, and if you talk to the Ministry of Finance, they're looking at maybe return on asset of maybe, even if you get 3% return on asset, or even 4%, 5%, that is substantial amount of resources. You're looking at maybe 3% is about, roughly about maybe 190 million, something like that, just on dividend. Okay, so really there's a lot of potential. Not only that, also in terms of generating employment, they have potential to really generate a lot of employment in this country. So really, if they are run in a very efficient and effective manner, the potential is there for them to really contribute towards the government fiscal operations, especially given that the fiscal environment is extremely constrained at the moment. So really, they have potential to help government in that sense by paying dividend to government. So the potential is definitely there.
Like you said, $37 billion is surprising, shocking, right?
Yeah. The bulk of that is coming from NAWEC. NAWEC alone, their total asset base is about 11-12 billion. GPA also likewise, and also civil aviation. Those are the three, I believe, with the highest amount of asset base.
And what surprised me, with all the benefits, with all the good salaries that they're benefiting from in the SOEs, more than those who are working in the government, yet they still depend on government. Do you think it's high time that government should reconsider even giving them subsidy, or at least reducing the subsidy that they give for these SOEs?
No. In terms of subsidy and bailing out SOEs, I have to say there's been a huge improvement. Okay. There was a report done in 2022. It's called the ISOF report, Integrated State-Owned Enterprise Framework Report. It quoted a number. It said that over the past 20 years or so, the amount of resources government has spent to bail out SOEs was equivalent to about 1.3–1.4% of GDP. That is a significant amount of money. Today, as we speak, government is not bailing out any SOE, with the exception of periodically they've bailed out GAMCEL, because GAMCEL really, they're in a very difficult financial position. But even institutions like NAWEC, they're not being bailed out at the moment. Currently, what they're asking government is for government to pay their bills, because sometimes government have ideas in terms of paying their NAWEC bills. But government has really refrained from subsidizing any SOE. So that itself is a major achievement. Okay, the fact that you're no longer subsidizing SOEs.
So has there been any resistance from the SOEs? I know sometimes, I mean, now someone is out there watching you, monitoring what you're doing. Has there been any resistance from the SOEs?
No.
To say, you know what, hey, this is how we've been doing it.
No, I have to say, I have to give them credit. They have all been very cooperative, very cooperative, all of them. Maybe there are some certain issues maybe could be contentious in terms of, for example, negotiating performance contract. Of course, it will be contentious, because you always have to strike a balance between realistic targets, but also challenging targets as well. So there should always be a balance. So in that sense, it's been very contentious negotiating performance contracts. But nonetheless, all the performance contracts have been negotiated in a very respectful and also in a very constructive manner as well. But in terms of resistance, I have to say all of them have been very cooperative with the SOE Commission.
Okay. I mean, so aside from just coming on a program like State of Affairs, how do you ensure stakeholders and the public are informed of the work of the Commission?
Yeah, that's a very good point. To be frank, when the Commission was being established, we didn't really place a lot of emphasis in terms of outreach, what exactly we're doing. But now we're beginning to take it more seriously. And the first step we've done now is to come up with a website. Okay. It's called www.state SOEC.gm. It's a very new website. I think it was just launched about 2 weeks ago or so. So we're still populating it, but the website is already live. In addition to that, also we want to go on social media as well too, just to update the public what we are doing. We already have a LinkedIn page as well, and we're also on the verge of having a Twitter page as well too. This is all geared towards briefing the public of the works of the Commission, because we've done a lot over this past 1 year. But people are still wondering, okay, what is the SOE Commission doing? What is the SOE Commission doing? But a lot of work has been done over this past 12 months.
So in terms of transparency and accountability, I mean, what measures have you put in place, or what measures are you planning to put in place to ensure there's that transparency in terms of procurement and even financial reporting within the SOEs? Procurement is another issue for these SOEs.
Well, procurement is not the...
You have a lot on your table, Bai. You have a lot to work on.
And today you're going very hard at me today.
Yeah, because, I mean, that is 7 billion, Bai. Come on. This alone can finance our budget. We don't have to take loans from somewhere else.
But this is just asset base, just the total asset. But in terms of revenue, they're generating maybe, if you look at January to June, the financial performance report we produced, they made about $8-9 billion in revenue. Well, the bulk of that came from NAWEC in terms of revenue. But what was your previous question again in terms of, you said transparency?
Yeah, accountability.
For transparency, what we are trying to do is because we're also limited by the Act, what we can do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so what we can do for transparency purposes is that the audited statements, we publish it on the website. So as soon as we get any audited statement that is endorsed by the PEC, automatically we put it on the website, so that it becomes public information, because these are public entities. So we want the public to be aware of what is happening in these companies. So that is one major step that we have taken in terms of improving transparency and so forth. And also moving forward, even the assessment for the performance contracts, moving forward we're also looking into maybe even publishing it as well, so that the public know how these SOEs are performing under the signed performance contracts.
So, I mean, do you foresee any changes in the mandate of the Commission? Because you are limited. There are certain things you can't do because you don't have that enforcement powers. Do you foresee changes in the mandate of the Commission?
No, because everything is already stipulated in the Act. So we're just implementing what the Act...
but it can be amended.
Yes, it can be.
They can amend it. They can amend the Act.
Yes. But
just to give you more powers.
But our powers also, even if you amend it, you have to be mindful of the Constitution, because the Constitution also is the overarching in terms of law. So really, you cannot even amend the Act to give us powers that is not given to us, or that is given to somebody else by the Constitution. So we're sort of limited in that manner. For example, the appointment of board members, we can only recommend, because the Constitution is very clear. It's the President who appoints board members. Likewise, the appointment of MDs. We cannot appoint an MD. We don't have the power. The Constitution is very clear. It's only the President who can appoint an MD. So these are things that is with the Constitution.
But you can recommend for their sacking if they don't meet your KPIs.
Yes, we can recommend, yes.
Good.
Yes, we can recommend, yes.
You can recommend?
Yes. And we'll do that, yes.
I hope you do. But let's still, look at the work of the Commission. What do you look forward to in the next 1 year? This year, should I say this year? What are your priorities?
For us, 4 main things are quite critical. In fact, this is our short-term strategy. The first one is to do with how do we still enhance these performance contracts. We believe that these performance contracts should be the anchor of our SOE reforms, because there's a lot of potential in these performance contracts. It's an accountability tool. It makes sure that it ascertains that SOEs know exactly what is expected of them, because the results will be measured moving forward. So really, it's a very good accountability tool, and we see is a lot of. I've only been working with performance contracts for the past 1.5 years or so, but I can already see the potential in it. It's very dynamic. You can do a lot of things. If a SOE is having issues to do with, let's say, governance, you can frame your governance KPIs in such a way that it will address that particular issue. Likewise, if it's to do, an SOE is having challenges when it comes to service delivery, you can frame your KPIs on service delivery to make sure that you address that particular issue. Likewise, financial performance, you can frame them in such a way that you will move the SOE you will force them to gradually move from loss-making to break-even point, basically. So really, there's a lot of potential in these, performance. So that is number one thing. We want to see how best we can improve on these performance contracts. Because as I said, the performance contracts also, they're still quite new. Yeah. And institutions like GPA, we are still unable to assess them because the lack of audited accounts. So still there's a long way to go. So that's number one. Number two is also to empower the boards. The boards play a very critical function when it comes to the operations of any SOE. They're very, very critical. Because with the board, if you empower them, that gives you maybe two main advantages in terms of effective leadership. Because they have to provide that strategic vision and direction for the SOE. So you give them that leeway to basically formulate the strategic vision and the direction of the SOE. In addition to that also, the board will be holding the management accountable for making sure that the implementation of that strategic vision is done in a most timely manner as well. So if the board is holding the management accountable, then the commission will now hold the board accountable. So that's why most of our correspondence is mainly going towards the board. We deal a lot with the boards. We hardly write to the MD also. We just write to the board because we want to empower them. So we want to make sure that really the boards are empowered and also they have all the tools to make sure that they guide these SOEs in the right direction, to formulate a very good, because boards also, they're responsible for this financial management. They're the ones who approve the budget. They're the ones who sign the financial statement. In terms of risk management as well too, they're the ones who have to identify the potential risks impacting on this SOE and to also formulate a mitigating strategy on those risks as well. So they have a lot of critical role, the board. So that's also the other thing. If you notice lately, we've been, according to the new act, we've been mandated to basically spearhead the recruitment of board members, whereby now we advertise, we shortlist, and finally we make a recommendation.
That will have been my next question, but I'm just okay. Well, viewers, you're watching QTV, and this is your weekly State of Affairs program here on QTV. My name is Aliu Sise, and my guest this week is by Madi Sise, who is the Executive Secretary of the State-Owned Enterprise Regulatory Commission. We'll go with a short break, and when we return, discussion continues. Do stay tuned.
Browse with us. QCell brings you a promo like never before. Get unlimited internet for just $25. Yes! Recharge $25 and enjoy the convenience of free internet from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. every day with our Browse with Us promo. With this amazing offer, you can browse, stream, and download all your favorite movies for free. So why wait? Recharge $25 today and enjoy free internet only with QCell between 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. For more information, call customer care on 111. QCell, Senior Bus, we innovate, others follow. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello viewers, welcome back from the short break. You're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and we're broadcasting live from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. My name is Aliu Sise, and this is your weekly State of Affairs program. My guest this week is by Madi Sise, who is the Executive Secretary of the State-Owned Enterprise Commission, established to ensure a more efficient state-owned enterprises in the country. You were talking about the role of the board in all these SOEs. Do you think the board, instead of controlling the management, it is the other way around? It's the management that's controlling the board?
Anyway, what should happen is that the board should be at the apex when it comes to policy formulation for any institution. So the management is answerable to the board. And we have done a lot of initiatives to make sure that boards understand their functions. For example, we've conducted training for all SOE boards, just so that they understand their function, to tell them about their role in terms of good corporate governance, in terms of financial management, in terms of risk management, in terms of code of ethics and the like. So really for us, the board is the pillar. If we get boards to function effectively and efficiently, it will translate into the SOE. A good board normally will translate into the SOE. But if the board is not effective and efficient, also it will translate to the SOE. SOEs will never perform. But if the boards are really very good and productive and result-oriented, you will see all these SOEs transformed. We are quite confident, which is why we're placing a lot of emphasis on making sure that we have the right boards and they know their functions and that they also empowered to also guide, and especially in terms of formulating the strategic direction of the SOE.
So who is responsible for appointing this board?
Currently now with the new act, it gives us some participation in the process. Before, the line ministry normally will make a recommendation to the president, and then the president will do the appointment. But currently, what we are doing in line with the act is that anytime there's a vacancy, we will engage the relevant SOE and the line ministry. And then we develop a TOR, basically, for that particular vacancy of a board of director. By the way, what we envisage in all these boards is that we want to have different skill sets in the boards. We want to have maybe
That's where I was coming. I mean, if the board appointments is based on political affiliation or who supports me and not the skills that the person has or what the person can bring to the table, then there comes a problem.
Yeah, but now we're trying to address that, because now what we're doing, for example, there's going to be a vacancy at the Civil Aviation Board. 4 of the private members, their terms are expiring, and they've already served the second term. So what we're doing is 4 board members, private board members.
I know some people have started making calls. The ones you mentioned, this, I know.
No, but
some people have started writing their application.
But still,
so I understand there's a vacancy at the
Civil Aviation
Board.
So that one we will most likely advertise it either this week or next week. But basically, what we're looking for, we want somebody, one at least with a very strong legal background. We want one with a very strong financial background, one with a very strong maybe business or private sector background, and one which is a sector specialist. For example, when it comes to civil aviation, somebody who understands the civil aviation industry. So for all boards, we want to have different really skill sets. So once we develop the TOR, we discuss it with the line ministry. If they're okay or if they want to add their input, then we advertise. Then people apply, then we do the shortlisting, then we interview. Then after the interview, then we rank them, then we make our final recommendation to the president. Then he makes the appointment.
As executive secretary, I would really like to know from you, how do you find working with these commissioners, especially with Mr. Ngom and Mr. Dean and others?
Oh, they're very...
I'm really curious to know.
No, I have to be honest, they're very dynamic.
You know, these are result-driven people.
Yeah,
I mean, they want to go all out and then...
Yeah, they're very, just like you said, they're very result-oriented. And they're very dynamic, and also they're very exposed with a lot of experience. Personally, I'm learning a lot from them. I mean, from all of them, all the commissioners. Really, it's a pleasure to work with them. All of them, they're extremely hardworking. They're very hands-on as well, too. All of them, they're very, very hands-on. So really, I really enjoy working with them. Very progressive, and they're even more eager to see changes on these SOEs. They're very, very committed to make sure that there's the right changes in all these SOEs. So
has the reshuffling of, heads of SOEs also affected the work of the commission? Today, Mr. X is here, next minute you are moved to another institution?
Not necessarily, because, for example, once you sign a performance contract, irrespective of which board comes or which management comes, the performance contract must still be implemented, because the institution stays. So the performance contract will still be implemented. So irrespective whether the MD is moved or the board chair resigns, or no, the performance contract is still there. So at the end of the day, for example, today, if you look at the NAWEC performance contract, it was negotiated by the previous board chair. I mean, he was at the, not him alone, but obviously him and the management and the rest of the board, but he was at the center of it. But now his term has expired, and the new board chair is coming after the performance contract has been finalized. But yet he still had to sign it. But he came after everything was finalized.
I remember at the signing ceremony, you said, the NAWEC performance contract was, I think, was it the longest and the toughest for you? It took you almost like 7 months negotiating?
Yeah. It was the most contentious and difficult performance contract to negotiate. But you have to understand, NAWEC is a very technical, highly technical and very complex institution. Personally, I learned a lot even in terms of the operations, in terms of the challenges. I learned a lot from the negotiation. And also, they're very committed. They have a very, very committed team, but there's also a lot of challenges.
And I like the fact that even the MD acknowledge that challenges exist.
Oh yeah, there are some serious challenges at NAWEC, and NAWEC will not be turned around in the short term. I don't envisage NAWEC, given all the challenges they have, especially over these past 10, 15 years, is really, I cannot see them being turned around in the immediate short term.
So we should embrace for continuous blackout?
No, that's not what I'm mainly referring in the from the perspective of the performance contract. I don't envisage them, for example, being profitable overnight. Because you're looking at the institution that is incurring losses of almost $1 billion just on a 6-month basis. So for that institution to be turned around in 1 year is really not realistic. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of the financial performance. But in terms of operations, we envisage that there's going to be some improvement. How soon, maybe that is debatable. But we envisage, given all the projects that they have, all the recent interventions by our development partners, we envisage that eventually there's going to be some improvements in terms of service delivery. But, but the thing is about the timing.
So, I mean, just like the case of the GPA, do you support the idea of privatizing NAWEC or even GAMTEL?
That is a policy decision beyond the...
But is it something that the Commission is considering? Looking at the current realities that, this...
Well, the Commission's role is just to provide oversight in terms of governance and financial oversight. But the Commission's role is not to dictate policy. That is a policy issue. Whether government wants to privatize NAWEC, that is a policy issue, mainly from Cabinet and also from the line ministry. The Commission really, maybe if they want our advice, yes, we can give our advice.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
yes, we can give our advice.
When you look at the realities, okay, definitely, I don't think, like you said, I mean, this is an institution that we can turn around. Like you said, okay, you said in the short term, but in an instance where you look at an institution and say, you know what, I don't think we can turn this around, not even in the next 20 years, I think it's better we just privatize it. The Commission can say so, they can recommend. Because you already know what we have seen and what obtains in these institutions. Yes,
we know, and then we are continuously also...
Perhaps the Act doesn't give you that also, I don't know.
No, the Act doesn't. For us, we cannot spearhead that. The issue of maybe privatization. That is, again, that is a strictly policy issue.
But it's just like... recommend?
Yes, we can recommend, yes.
The same way you recommend for salary reduction. The same way Mr. Gov and everyone recommended for salary reduction at NAWEC. You can say, so I think it's better we just privatize this company.
Yeah, but again, my point is, yes, that is a strictly policy issue that should emanate from government. Yeah, but then if government wants to go that route, then of course the Commission can. But the Commission cannot spearhead that and say that no, we think that NAWEC should be private. No, that is a policy issue. It's just the same thing as, for example, maximizing revenue. That is not the role of the Commission. That is the role of the board and the management. These are policy issues that should be taken care of by the board or the line minister and cabinet. Our role is just oversight function, basically. To make sure that they comply with rules, legal instruments, to make sure that they are not posing fiscal risk to government. This is our role, basically.
So what will you look back as your key or main challenges so far? That you sit. I think I should just let go.
The one thing that I think is very problematic is the one that I said earlier. So far, I think it's a big challenge. The issue of the submission of the audited accounts. Well, with the backlog, really, it's a big challenge because again, that is a core governance pillar. If you cannot submit audited accounts on a timely manner, then really it raises a lot of governance issues. Because again, we cannot be sitting here looking at audited accounts of 2021. So many things have happened since 2021.
But we have had people say auditing is just an opinion. So why is that so important to the Commission?
Because without these audited statements, we cannot assess their performance. That is key. Because, for example, like I said, with GPA, since 2023, they've basically now implemented 2 performance contracts, 2023 and 2024. And we're still unable to assess their performance just because of the lack of audited accounts. So really, it hinders our work. It impedes our work, really. So we really have, this is a big challenge. And not only for us, even for PEC. Can you imagine PEC?
Parliament?
Even so, PEC even having to sit, having discussions on 2021. A lot of things have been, overtaken by events since 2021 or 2022. We should be looking at very up-to-date audit accounts, very up-to-date.
Interesting. And you think the board also have a role in this whole thing?
Yes, the board is us as a commission, the board have to apply the pressure to make sure that all
the
these
commission is just
backlogs.
coming, but the boards have been there since 2021.
Yeah, oh yes, I completely agree. The boards have to apply the pressure to make sure that all the backlogs of audit accounts are taken care of. The boards have to. In fact, that is a board responsibility. I mean, audit is mainly for the for the board. So really, they have to make sure, they have to take the decision that, look, all these backlogs I have to clear. I must get up-to-date audited accounts.
So in terms of this performance contract, is there any expiry date?
Yes, the performance contract is for a period of 3 years, but according to the contract also, after every year, you can renegotiate the KPIs and the targets, basically, after every year. So once you do your assessment, then you can renegotiate the KPIs and the targets. So there's a clause they have to renegotiate after every year. So currently the GNPC, the Social Security and the GPA, they're entering into their final year because they were signed in 2023. So they had one in 2023, 2024, and this is their final year. So after this year now, we have to renegotiate the entire performance contract again, even the clauses. Everything has to be renegotiated again.
So who dictates?
It's mainly a negotiation. It's mainly between us and them. So it's completely a negotiation, very constructive, very contentious, but also very constructive. But it's a negotiation.
We're running out of time, but I mean, what will be your message to Gambians as far as the work of the Commission is concerned?
Well, what I can say is that the Commission has undertaken a lot of activities. It has not been easy because it's a very new commission, only 1 year old. Not only that, also getting the right staffing has been a problem. If I tell you that for almost 8 months out of the 1 year, it was only 2 employees, formal employees of the commission. It was myself and my deputy. So now, as of this past October, we are beginning to recruit. Now we have at least some few more staff, but we still need to recruit more. But in terms of achievements, we've done a lot. For example, in the area of governance, we've introduced a SOE Code of Good Corporate Governance, whereby basically details out the responsibilities of the board, in terms of the definition and the role of the board, in terms of the committees of the board, in terms of evaluation of the board members, in terms of ethical standards and the like. In addition to that, also, we have recruited new board members for GPPC and GRTS. In addition to that, also, we've trained all the SOE boards, all of them, on good corporate governance, their responsibilities and the like. And also in terms of, let's say, from the financial perspective, we have reviewed all the budgets because, with the new act, all SOEs are supposed to submit their budgets to the Commission. So we've reviewed all the budgets and we have provided them with in-depth comments before we approve their budget. In-depth comments on all of them. We've also, another key area that we also will be focusing a lot is about these audit reports, because there's a lot of audit reports coming in and some of the allegations on the audit reports are really quite serious. So what we normally do is anytime we get these audit reports, our first point of call is the board. So we write to the board for them to explain what steps have been taken to address those issues, and also how are they implementing the audit recommendations as well too. So from a policy directive also, we formulated, for example, the SOE regulations, now just for the implementation of the Act. We've also formulated a dividend policy. Now there's a dividend policy for all SOEs. Basically, the dividend policy is focusing on 2 main areas. What are the preconditions in order for SOE to pay dividend to government? And once they meet this precondition, what is the policy? How much are they supposed to pay dividend to government? We've also formulated a board remuneration policy because we want to place a lot of emphasis on the boards. But if you want to do that, if you want to give them a responsibility, you also have to remunerate them also properly or accordingly. So we also formulated a very detailed board remuneration policy. And after we did that, we engaged all the SOEs, the MDs and the board chairs of all the SOEs, just to get their input on this board remuneration policy. And their input was really quite vital. So as a result, we decided to go back to the drawing board, basically. So we also developed, again, the SOE regulations. In terms of performance contracts, we've already signed 8. We've assessed NAWEC. We've assessed Social Security, and now we have received that of the audit accounts of the GNPC. So we're in the process of assessing the performance of GNPC also. So very soon we'll be giving our recommendations with regards to the performance of GNPC. We've also undertaken a lot of site visits. We've gone to, for example, to NAWEC. We've gone to most of their sites in terms of electricity. We went to Jabang, we went to Jambur, the solar plant. We also, for water, we also went to Serekunda, Fajara. We basically try to understand the operations, especially from a challenging perspective. And one thing we learned, for example, from that trip was that they're facing a lot of challenges, especially on the T&D system, the transmission and distribution system.
Yeah.
And also they have very dilapidated water infrastructure. But also we discussed with them as far as what steps are being taken to address those dilapidated water infrastructure, and also what steps are being taken to address the transmission and distribution network. Yeah, so all these are things that we have been doing over the past 1 year. So moving forward, one thing I can say is that we are very committed, and we're also quite hopeful.
Yeah.
We're also quite hopeful that in due course, but one thing I always say is that
in just 10 seconds, we've run out of time completely.
we just need to manage expectations, that this is a very young commission and it's going to take time.
Thank you so much. By Madi Sise, who is the Executive Secretary of the State on Enterprises Regulatory Commission. Thank you so much. It was good to have you in the program, and we quite appreciate your time, and we wish you all the best. Well, viewers, with that, we bring an end to this week's edition of your weekly State of Affairs program. You can always watch this podcast by visiting our website, that's YouTube at QTV Gambia. On behalf of everyone here at QTV, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.